Welcome to the Seekers Forum, everyone. This is Mark Matousek. Tonight I'm going to be talking to you about life unplugged. Now, summer is the season for letting go. It's the time of the year for abandoning ourselves to unseriousness, for practicing a healthy degree of irresponsibility, and giving ourselves a much-needed break. A break to pause, a break to play, and a break to forget ourselves without feeling guilty or remorseful. Now, to talk about how we do this, I'm going to be covering 5 areas that are important when it comes to unplugging from our hectic and action-driven lives. Time, guilt, desire, vice, and abandon. Okay, so let's start with time. I've been reading a book that talks about time in ways that I'm finding very illuminating. It's a charming memoir called Travels with Epicurus, in which the author, Daniel Klein, spends time on the Greek island of Hydra, sort of contemplating how to live a meaningful and pleasurable life in older age. Klein is a New York writer, and he's fascinated by how the Greeks enjoy their days, especially a group of elderly men he knows who meet daily in this local taverna, where they gossip and they play cards and they drink retsina for hours on end, seemingly oblivious of time passing. One day, Klein notices the 90-year-old father of one of these men fingering his kamboloi, a string of what we call worry beads. And he asks the son if his father is a worrier, or maybe he's just a religious man who uses the beads as a rosary. And what the guy says to him is quite the contrary, that kamboloi in his country are not used to ward off anxiety. Instead, they're used as a tool for spacing out time, for making every minute last, and savoring the slowness of being. How different is this from our approach, from our clock-watching paranoid culture, where time is always running out. It's fleeting. It's treated as an endangered commodity, just like money. It's not an accident that we have this chestnut that time is money. In the West, we view time as the enemy, because it's always threatening to kill us. We see it as this lethal, unstoppable, out-of-control thing, a scarcity on which our existence depends. Time is a gift that's never quite enough. Western philosophers have likened God to a great watchmaker in the sky, tapping his wrist kind of disapprovingly to remind us of how much remains to be done and how unlikely we are to actually complete it. Now, we're not always aware of how enormously destructive this attitude toward time is to our peace of mind. By making time the enemy, we turn our existence into a battle, a brutal kind of race that we're bound to lose. The antithesis of what this old Greek man is doing, savoring time with his beads. Klein compares this relaxed approach in Greece to what he calls in America the forever youngsters. His friends in their 60s and 70s who are striving to beat back time by running harder and working more feverishly and getting more facelifts and hair plugs and ulcers, chasing shadow and living in fear. I have nothing against plastic surgery. But you understand the point. When we're using cosmetic surgery, for example, or a more hectic schedule, or becoming more ambitious as a way to counteract the fear of time, we're only perpetuating the conflict within ourselves. Now, this traumatizing approach to time is a relatively new invention. It's a product of the Industrial Revolution that has been made much, much worse by technology. For most of our history, humans have lived in far greater harmony with time's slow passage. Indeed, there are indigenous cultures, such as the Moken people in Indonesia, that have no word for time. When you visit a Moken village after a 20-year absence, you'll be greeted as if it were yesterday. With our emphasis on material life and gain, we have despiritualized time almost entirely. Philosopher Mircea Eliade wrote a half-century ago, quote, "The modern West is the first culture that has managed to strip time and space of all sacredness and to produce a fully practical, efficient, and profane world." Now that may be an overstatement, but Eliade's point is well taken. We have misplaced the sacred dimension of time. That's why a book like Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now caused such a sensation. It reminded us of what the mystics call nunc fluens, or eternal time, as opposed to nunc stans, which is hourglass time. Eternal time never runs out. The 7th century philosopher Boethius put it this way. He said, "The now that passes produces time. The now that remains produces eternity." This eternal flow, which can also be called simply being present, is the antidote to time as the enemy. You know those moments when time seems to stop, when you're in nature, or you're making love, or you're reading a good book, getting lost in the flow of writing or some other creative activity. In those moments when we're completely present, time loses its grip on us. We touch the eternal now by slowing down, forgetting ourselves, paying attention, and opening our senses. When we change our relationship to time, when we open ourselves to the eternal dimension, life ceases to be the enemy. It loses its grip on us. In fact, and this is an idea I'd like you to take with you today, your relationship to time may in fact be the single most important relationship in your life.